All right, so you want to dive into some serious astrological compatibility today.
Let's do it.
Taurus and Aquarius, right? This is a combo that always gets people talking.
Yeah, it's not your typical, like, match made in heaven kind of pairing,
Right, right. And we're all about going beyond those super basic sun sign descriptions.
Deeper dynamics.
Yeah, exactly. So we did some digging, and right off the bat, one thing was super clear. Taurus and Aquarius aren't exactly seen as a, how do we put this delicately?
A slam dunk.
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
One source even went as far as saying that Taurus might find Aquarius a little bit.
Well, crazy.
Yeah, crazy. And that Aquarius might see Taurus as kind of
boring.
boring. Ouch. Right. But when you really think about the core traits of these two signs, it starts to...
It makes sense, yeah.
It makes sense.
You've got Taurus, right? Earth sign, all about being grounded, sensual, loving those routines.
Future comforts.
Totally. Like, picture them super content, curled up with a good book, maybe some delicious takeout. That's their happy place.
It sounds glorious. But then we have Aquarius, air sign, all about like breaking free from routines.
Right. Unconventional, always going to be mentally stimulated, more likely to choose a night debating philosophy under the stars than...
Then takeout and a good book.
Exactly. And this is where understanding those elements can really come in handy, because you've got earth signs like Taurus craving that stability, that predictability, like give me all the tangible, familiar things. And then you've got air signs like Aquarius who are all about change, needing that mental stimulation. It's less about the concrete world for them and way more about like exploring all these ideas, all these possibilities.
So not exactly speaking the same language when it comes to, romance, even if they're both coming from a place of love.
Right. It's like, imagine a Taurus planning this super romantic candlelit dinner at home, and Aquarius is like, hey, let's ditch this and go stargazing instead.
Huh. And they're both valid ways of being romantic.
Totally. But you can see how that might lead to some misunderstandings.
Totally. But, okay, here's where things get really interesting. Because even though it's not an obvious match, there's this surprising potential for, like, some serious physical chemistry between these two.
It's true. It's like that whole forbidden fruit thing, like it shouldn't work, so it just does.
Totally. And remember how we were talking about how both signs can be a bit outside the box?
A little bit outcast, yeah.
Exactly. Well, that shared, like, outsider energy, it can be crazy bonding for a Taurus and an Aquarius.
Oh, totally. Like they just get each other's need to do their own thing, even if those things look completely different.
Okay, so maybe not love at first sight, but definitely some serious potential for sparks to fly.
Yeah.
But then we got to talk about the elephant in the room, right?
Which is, yes, trust, the tricky part. And the thing is, it's not always about either one wanting to be untrustworthy.
Right.
It's more about how their individual, like, insecurities and those communication styles can clash.
Yeah. Because Taurus needs security.
Yeah.
Like, really needs it. So any criticism, even if it's totally unintentional, can hit them hard.
For sure. And that fear of judgment, it can lead to, maybe not being totally truthful all the time, just to avoid making waves.
And then on the flip side, you've got Aquarius, who values honesty above all else. So they're going to be completely thrown by that. Like, just be upfront with me.
Exactly. And that's where the communication breakdown often happens, because that direct communication style that Aquarius is known for,
which they probably think is being honest and kind.
Right. But it can feel way too harsh for a Taurus who needs gentleness and reassurance.
Like, speak to me in soft tones, please.
Exactly. Remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus love, beauty, all about that harmony. And Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, innovation, rebellion.
So not always realizing how their straight-up honesty is landing.
Not always, no.
Okay, so we've got Taurus craving security and afraid to rock the boat. And Aquarius is over here valuing honesty and totally baffled as to why their partner isn't laying it all out there.
Sounds messy, right?
Sounds like a recipe for disaster. So how do they even start to build a life together with all that going on? It's almost like they're building a house on totally different foundations.
Right. But maybe the trick isn't trying to make those foundations the same. Maybe it's about, like, building a bridge that actually highlights how cool those differences are.
I like that. Instead of trying to erase the differences, you're celebrating them. How does that actually work? especially when it comes to trust and all that.
Well, remember how we were talking about the outsider connection?
Oh, yeah, the whole rebel planet thing.
Exactly. Taurus ruled by Venus, Aquarius by Uranus, and both those planets, they rotate differently than all the other planets in the solar system.
The rebels of the zodiac, right?
Totally. And that shared rebel energy, it can create this like deep understanding between Taurus and Aquarius. It's like, hey, you get me.
Kind of like finding someone who loves the same obscure band as you. Like you feel seen, you feel understood.
Exactly. Like you get it, you get me. But even with that kind of cosmic connection, there's still the whole issue of love languages.
Ah, yes. Love languages.
Yeah.
The classic relationship conundrum. How does that play out with Taurus and Aquarius?
So Taurus, they really crave those constant expressions of love, right? The I love yous, the thoughtful gifts, the physical touch, all that good stuff.
Super important to them. Makes them feel secure.
Right. Whereas Aquarius, they might show love through acts of service or by sharing experiences or even just through like really stimulating conversations.
So it's less about the grand romantic gestures and more about showing up in practical ways for them.
Exactly.
It's like Taurus is speaking Italian, all about romance and passion, and Aquarius is speaking German, all about efficiency and practicality.
Huh. And they're both beautiful languages, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a translator, things can get lost in translation pretty quickly.
Okay, so for this to work, it sounds like communication is key.
100%. Taurus needs to learn that Aquarius showing love a little differently doesn't mean they don't care.
And Aquarius needs to step up their game when it comes to expressing affection in a way that Taurus actually understands.
Right, and be open to learning those more romantic languages. Because Taurus, they appreciate that effort.
It's like learning a love song in a whole new language.
Exactly. It shows you care enough to try. But let's say they've, figured all that out. They're navigating the trust thing. They're getting the whole love language situation.
Now it's like, okay, what does actually spending time together look like for these two? Because that's where things could get really interesting. Right?
It's where it gets real, you
Right.
know? Because it's one thing to connect on an emotional level, but then everyday life, that can be a whole other story.
So what does their shared story look like? Give us the details.
Well, one thing that our research pointed out was that Taurus, with their love for planning, they're surprisingly good at like organizing trips and adventures.
Really, I wouldn't have guessed that about Taurus.
It's true. They might not be like the spontaneous ones, but they know how to plan a good time. You could totally see them like whisking Aquarius away on some amazing trip.
So like less about let's pack a bag and see where the wind takes us, and more like I've booked us a charming Airbnb in the south of France, and here's the itinerary.
Exactly.
Okay, so picture this. You're in a gondola, sun is setting, you're cruising down a canal, your Taurus partner has totally outdone themselves.
Right, like booked the most incredible Venetian getaway,
Every detail is perfect.
candlelit dinners with a view of the Rialto Bridge, gondola rides complete with like a musician serenading you both.
I mean, are you kidding? How romantic is that?
Total fairy tale stuff, right?
But then, like a few days in, that adventurous Aquarius spirit kicks in.
Always gotta shake things up, right?
And all the museums, all the gelato, you're like, okay, what's next?
And you're ready to like ditch the itinerary and just wander those little back streets.
Exactly. You're like, let's just get lost, see where we end up.
Spontaneity. It's an art form for Aquarius.
But for Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
who's got everything planned down to the minute,
That can be a little jarring.
an understatement.
Yeah.
So how do you even begin to navigate that kind of clash?
That's where that whole flexibility thing comes in, right? It's not about forcing Taurus to embrace chaos, and it's not about forcing Aquarius to stick to a rigid schedule.
So it's like, okay, I get that you need to know where we're eating dinner tonight, but how about we spend the afternoon just wandering around and seeing what we find?
Exactly. Or maybe instead of completely ditching the itinerary.
You like build in some unscheduled time?
Exactly. A little buffer for spontaneity. That way, Taurus still feels like things are generally under control, and Aquarius gets those little bursts of adventure.
It's like finding that sweet spot where both signs feel like their needs are being met.
Exactly. And that's the magic of it, right?
You're blending those contrasting energies instead of trying to erase them.
And what you get is something that's like way more interesting and exciting than either person could have planned on their own. It's not about finding someone exactly like you. It's about finding someone who challenges you, who pushes you to grow.
And maybe that's the ultimate takeaway here, right? Because this whole Taurus-Aquarius thing, it's not a walk in the park. It takes work. But But if both people are willing to put in the effort,
Oh, it can be so rewarding.
you can have this crazy, passionate, deeply fulfilling relationship.
With a whole lot of fun along the way.
This has been your deep dive into Taurus-Aquarius compatibility. We'll see you next time.